Hey everyone, welcome back. Icon here, and in today's video I want to talk to you a little bit about the 7 mistakes you're making in Call of Duty Modern Warfare and how to fix them so you can get just a little bit better at the game. Quick note about the gameplay in the background, I'm playing Hardpoint on Piccadilly, and I picked this for a reason just because it seems like in the community there's a lot of hate towards Piccadilly. It's not my favorite map by any means, but I figured I would pick this gameplay just because I end up dropping 40 plus, getting a chopper gunner and all of that good stuff. So perhaps while you're watching in the background, maybe you can pick up a thing or two. As we go ahead and hop into the content of this video, over the last few weeks since this game is released, I feel like there are some core things that I've just seen from average players that they're doing wrong, that if they would just fix a thing or two, they could raise their kill death a little bit easier and get into some of those higher competitive lobbies. So without further ado, as we go ahead and hop into the countdown, mistake number 1 is that you have to slow down. Believe me, I know this probably seems like the most obvious thing, and it's probably the hardest thing to do. I know from somebody like me that has a background in competitive where it's run, rush as fast as you can from one point to another. It's extremely difficult, but if you want to succeed in this game, you have got to slow down. I did a video just about a week or so. I'll go ahead and I'll link it on screen. But essentially, I went and I paused and I counted as I was running down the street like 14 different viewpoints that I could be shot from. So there were 14 lines of sight where somebody could have just shot me. So the first thing is that you have to slow down because there are so many lines of sight that you never really know where you're going to get shot from, and you have to be able to check those as you're running in real time. Whereas if you're just sprinting and you're never really looking, it's just not going to work out for you. The other reason is that the time to kill in this game is so fast. You really don't have any time to react. Most of the time, I would say probably 80-90% of the time, if you're not the person that gets the first bullet on your enemy, you're probably going to die. You don't really have the opportunity to counter-react in this game. So in closing here, you just have to do anything you can do to slow down. Whether it's run the PKM, so run some sort of LMG, put a silencer on your M4 like you see on screen here, maybe pick some perks that are a little bit slower, which I'll talk about in a minute. But if you have, the amped up and the double time and perks like that, then you're going to want to rush even more. So whatever you have to do, whether it's make changes with your guns, with your attachments, or whatever, slow down. Force yourself to slow down. You'll see your KD rise immediately. As we go ahead and move on to tip number 2, I did a whole video of this. Again, I'll link it on screen, but you have to fix your sprint durations. So if you spawn and you just run forward with your head down and you're trying to get to B-Dom or someplace on the map and you're just sprinting straight ahead, essentially all you're going to be doing for yourself is just sprinting directly into bullets. This game has a distinct feature where you can sprint and you can super sprint, so you can kind of double sprint. The double sprint, if you take time, so if you double sprint and jump and look around and you continue to reset that double sprint and do it over and over again, it's essentially just like the same speed as sprinting normally, and while you're doing that in the air, you can check all those different lines of sights as you run. As I explain this might not make too much sense. I'm trying to put it on screen, but if you haven't seen that video, go watch it, because there are so many times I'll just be double sprinting, I'll just be checking my lines of sight as I'm in midair, and I'll get a kill, or I'll turn on somebody while that's happening. Whereas if I'm just sprinting like normally, there's no way I would ever get that kill because I wouldn't see those people. So it just takes a little bit more work, it takes a little bit more practice, but in the end, you're going to save yourself from dying from all those different lines of sight that you wouldn't have been checking previously. The third mistake you're probably making is you're not choosing the correct perks. So if you're playing mostly public matches, then what I'm going to suggest to you is to strictly use EOD and use Ghost. So what you use for the third pick, whether it's Shrapnel or Battle Hardened or something like that, that doesn't really matter. But the second perk, Ghost, I know there are times where you want to get your kill streak, so you want to use Hardline, or you're sniping and you want to use Restock or something like that in that second position. But I can't tell you how many times I've jumped into a great game of Ground War and I've been going for my streaks and high kill games and stuff like that, and I'll just be in a perfect spot and somebody will come up behind me and they'll know exactly where I'm at just because I'm on the UAV. So first thing, use Ghost. It takes you off the radar. Nobody will expect to see you. Ghost is super important. Next thing, and I'm sure you guys have done this probably 4,000 times by now, Claymores and bouncing betties and stuff like that are literally everywhere in this game. To just go ahead and remove all of that, just put on EOD. Now it comes to the point where people are camping up in windows and they have a claymore behind it. I'll purposely just run right through it. Normally, those people aren't that great of players. In most cases, if it's a good player hiding behind a claymore, they'll hear it go off, they'll get the little hit marker, and they'll snap around real quick and they'll finish that kill. But most of the times in this game, the people hiding behind claymores really aren't that great of players. So at this point in time in the game, I just go ahead, I sprint through it, I let it go off, and then I just sneak up and I get that kill. Again, most of the time, people don't even turn around and look, so EOD, super important. You can save yourself from all those claymore, all those bouncing Betty deaths, and you can go ahead and raise your kill death just by selecting the correct perks. As we move ahead in our list, the fourth mistake that you're making is not selecting the proper gunsmith selections. Now this one's a little bit different because this can be personalized to whatever you feel you like the most, such as with sights. I know what I enjoy, such as what you see on screen. I really like the smaller sights when you're talking about the M4. If you're talking about something like the PKM or the M91, so an LMG, then I like to use a holographic sight. And then if I'm using an SMG, so the MP5, MP7, P90, something like that, I just won't use sights at all. But where it really comes into play are all of the different attachments. So again, I did another video on this talking about how to aim better in Modern Warfare. I'll go ahead and I'll put a link to that on screen as well. But essentially what it comes down to is, just like in every Call of Duty, there are some attachments that are better than others. So there's some that do aiming stability, there's some that do recoil stability, there's some that do recoil control, and essentially what you have to do is you have to narrow down which ones work best in combination with each other. So what I have found, and again, this is all laid out in that video, but if you use the Commando foregrip, if you use the compensator, and you use a barrel, the combination of those three drastically reduce the recoil that you see in a lot of the guns, such as the M4 like you see on screen. Now, I went ahead and I switched out the Corvus Custom Marksman barrel just for a silencer, just because I wanted to be a little bit more tactical with my gameplay when it came to this one, but those three are going to give you the biggest edge when it comes to being able to control your recoil and hit all the shots that you want to hit. Mistake number 5, learning the maps. So this might seem like, well, duh, of course I should learn the maps, but really what I'm talking about are all the map intricacies. So Infinity Ward is a lot different than like Sledgehammer or Treyarch or some of the other map designers, in that most of the time, if you can jump to something, you can get on top of it. I super like that about these maps, because not only does it allow you to be creative, but it opens up different routes where you can get behind the enemy. So you can hit flanks, you can get behind the enemy, such as in this map, you can jump up into athletic from the outside, you can jump up into scaffolding from the left side, rather than how everybody always runs up the stairs on the one side. If you haven't seen my maps and spots, I have a video for that as well. I know this seems like a big ad for all my other videos, but I promise it's not. I've just covered a lot of these things, but I just wanted to put them like in a general area so that you had an idea of what works best. But by all means, learn about all the maps. I have this Jumps and Spots series. I also have this Line of Sight series. It's really good for learning stuff like that. And the more you know about the map design and different routes and flanks and stuff like that that you can hit, it's only going to prepare you better, so that when you see somebody and you have to get behind them, or you have to get the edge or something like that, you can do it because you're armed with the map knowledge in order to take advantage of that situation. Next thing I'm going to talk about, tip number 6, is that you should avoid kind of the typical areas, the typical routes. So for example, in this map, one of the most popular places is right between buses there, where kind of B-Dom is. And think about it. How many times have you seen me run directly through the center of the map? I just haven't done it. If I were to do that, there are 1,000 different ways that I can get killed from, but everybody's going to be looking there. So rather than run right through the middle of the map, I might run through library like I'm in right now. I might go ahead and I might go towards the statue on the one side of the other side of the map. But essentially, I'm just trying to avoid those high traffic areas. When you're trying to get from point A to point B and you go through those high traffic areas, there's a good chance that while you're going through them, you're probably going to die. So anything that you can do to kind of flank around the map, or it doesn't even have to be some sort of drastic flank. Just as long as you're kind of moving from cover to cover and avoiding those biggest places, you're going to end up saving yourself in the long run, and your kill death is going to be better. So anything you can do to not just run directly through the middle of the map, again, another super easy way that you can raise your KD just by avoiding the high popular areas. Last but not least, mistake number 7, utilize the ability to mount your gun. So I never see people do this, and I don't understand it. So especially like in search and destroy, when you're holding down a line of sight and you're up against the side of a window, or you're head glitching some sort of concrete barrier or something, I'm always kind of screaming at my monitor to that person to just mount your gun. So a couple reasons why. One, it removes a lot of the recoil from your gun, so you have a much better chance to make your bullets hit the enemy, so your bullets on target. The other thing it does is that it takes away like half of your body. So now you're getting into a gun battle with an enemy, and you can see basically 100% of their body, and they can only see about 50% of your body, and their gun is recoiling a lot, and you've removed most of the recoil from your gun. So if you're thinking about it, just use the mount ability. So run up to a corner, hit circle real quick, or square, or whatever the button is, depending on what system you're playing. And once you get the hang of it, you get really used to it. You just run to a corner, hit the button, you already know what's going to be there. You form the muscle memory where you can just do it automatically, and you end up saving yourself a lot of the time. It's a lot easier to get those kills, it's a lot easier to hit your shots, and there's no downside of doing it. It's not like once you're mounted, it takes a long time to get off that mount or whatever. You literally just turn around and run away, and you're off the mount. So use the mount ability. With that, guys, thank you so much for checking out another video. If you're new around here, please hit that subscribe button. Don't leave without leaving a like, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks again. See ya.